Alright guys, how's it going? My name is Nyxre and welcome to another episode of The Good, The Bad, and The Teemo, where today I'll be covering full Tank Blitzcrank. Here's the reference guide for today's video. This is for any of you guys who may be interested in how I went about testing this specific build. Just keep in mind that I'm not saying this is the most optimal way of building full Tank Blitzcrank, but it is the way I went about doing it for the sake of this video. An Imgur link for this image can be found down in the description below. So let's get into the good things about playing full Tank Blitzcrank. First of all, he's able to provide your team with a crazy amount of crowd control at any stage of the game. 3 of his abilities contain some form of CC, with his W being used for chasing and escapes. This fits right in with other top lane champions which are popular right now, as most of them provide plenty of crowd control for their team, which allows for their jungler to play something a bit more aggressive. Building off this, Blitzcrank is one of the few champions in the game with an AoE silence. This can be incredibly useful during any team fight, as you can immediately lower the damage output from the enemy team simply by walking near them and pressing R. This gets even better, as the cooldown of his ultimate is extremely low. In certain cases, you'll find yourself able to cast your ultimate more than once in a single team fight. Additionally, as a result of your ultimate having such a low cooldown, you can feel free to use it in lane to either push out the minion wave or harass the enemy. This works heavily in your favor if your lane opponent is melee, because you can guarantee a bit of damage whenever they go in for a cannon minion. Another great thing about playing Blitzcrank as a super tanky top laner is that it forces the enemy laner to be extremely cautious when pushing the wave under your tower. Using your rocket grab is going to be the most reliable way of securing kills as Blitzcrank, and sometimes you can position yourself in such a way that the enemy will be forced to either give up a few minions or run the risk of being pulled under your turret and knocked up with your E. In this sense, full Tank Blitzcrank has the ability to completely determine the flow of the laning phase, as more experienced players will be able to keep the minion wave frozen just outside of the turret range for longer periods of time. Working once again with his hook, Blitzcrank is very good for a sieging team composition. Because you're building full tank, you can easily run under the turret and force the enemy carries to back away. This should effectively get rid of the enemy's wave clear and allow for your team to safely secure objectives. And finally, Blitzcrank of course maintains some of his best qualities as when he is chosen as a support. The option for early jungle invades is always prevalent as a result of your rocket grab, along with the ability to mesh perfectly with a pick composition. Your grab remains game changing throughout the entirety of the game, and is arguably the best reason to try this build out in the first place. Now moving on to the bad things about building full Tank Blitzcrank, is that he is relatively bad at finishing off kills. As you'll see many times throughout this video, I was able to get the enemy laner down to under 100 HP just for them to freely walk away. This means that a lot of your early game presence is going to rely on whether or not you're able to land your grabs in a way which places the enemy far enough under your turret that they can't escape. Another option is to have your jungler frequently gank, as the damage they provide should be more than enough to finish off the kill in most instances. On top of this, Blitzcrank has a pretty mediocre escape. This has been true ever since his overdrive was nerfed, and because of the slow the ability causes after a few seconds, you're better off not using it most of the time. The only way this ability helps you when trying to avoid skill shots or enemy ganks is if it's cast at the perfect time that allows for you to dodge a crucial skill shot. While this is certainly doable, it's not as good as many of the champions you're likely to find yourself up against. Moving on to the Teemo, this is a section that covers the fundamental issues with playing Blitzcrank this particular way, and describes why you'd probably choose another build or champion entirely. Starting off, Blitzcrank is very mana hungry in the early game. Your grab costs a crazy amount of mana, and using it 2 or 3 times will run your mana pool dry, allowing for your lane opponent to freely farm and harass you until you return to base. This becomes more prominent when facing ranged opponents, who may force you to use your grab to try and farm. You probably wouldn't want to try this build out while playing against something like a Gnar, as he'll easily be able to farm safely behind his minion line, and can hop away from any hooks you may attempt to throw at him. In the current meta, this isn't really an issue as most of the popular top lane champions are also melee tanks, but in any meta favoring poke, this build is sure to lose its impact. And finally, one of the worst things about Blitzcrank is how telegraphed his grab actually is. Unlike Thresh, Blitzcrank has to be facing the direction his hook will be thrown prior to the ability happening. This means that at higher ranks, this build will quickly become less appealing, as most opponents will easily be able to dodge the single ability which you are so reliant upon. And that's all I have regarding full Tank Blitzcrank. Blitz is a very versatile champion, and I'm definitely interested in doing a few more videos regarding some of his other possible build paths. While he's a fun champion to play, the most frustrating part I had when making this video was how team reliant he really is. Building full tank doesn't really supply you with enough damage to bully your way to a victorious laning phase, which is why you probably wouldn't see many people trying this build out in the first place. Feel free to leave a like if you did enjoy the video, and subscribe if you're new around here and would like to see more. If you didn't like the video, feel free to leave a dislike. All I ask is that you leave a comment with what you believe I could have done better, so that my future content can continue to improve. But anyways, that's all I have for you guys in this video. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one.